the consequences of having a data privacy breach, they're quite large. Not only are we looking at the new potential fines that are coming out under the new laws, but there's that reputational risk as well. You don't want to be in the news like certain organizations have. Even Marriott hotels, for example, they had a series of data breaches a number of years ago now, but you take a hit when that happens. So yeah, they're very interested in it.
Why is the government really stepping in here and starting to put in these laws and this legislation? But if you think about identity theft and what that means to one individual, if they have trusted an organization with their personal information and that isn't protected properly, there's negligence on the side of that organization, and this person's life could potentially be in shambles for years because of the negligent act of not dealing with that data properly. And that is a huge cost.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the job of governments are to look out for their citizens. It is a big
You'd hope so.
Yeah, you'd hope. I mean, you hope so. But Canada is also playing some catch up here. We were one of the jurisdictions in the world that was ahead of the game back in, more than 20 years ago now when we passed PIPEDA, which is Canada's main federal privacy law right now. But since then, we've had GDPR come out in the European Union and Economic Area. So under GDPR, for example, there can be an adequacy decision where the regulators there take a look at a jurisdiction and they look at its laws and they say, is that a jurisdiction that gives adequate protection to European data subjects? And if we do, then great. That means that data can relatively easily, not completely, flow relatively freely between an EU member state subject to GDPR in Canada, for example. Our friends south of the border used to, but do not now. So under a series of decisions, the US Privacy Shield was struck down. Listeners can go down some rabbit holes to understand why that is, and there's various podcasts out there that have interesting discussions about the role of Edward Snowden in that.
Okay.
If we want to put on some tin hats and start talking about those things, you can go down that and be well entertained. But the important thing is the EU regulators said the United States is not a jurisdiction that is going to be given the same sort of adequacy decision as Canada. Like, again, we're playing catch up. I'm not privy to the debates in the House of Commons and all that about why we're amping up our privacy laws. But if I were to guess, that is a motivation as well. Again, why is it important for us? Well, it's important because the government's taking it more and more seriously. And we want to be at that forefront of privacy and data protection because we don't want Canadian businesses to lose business like we have seen in parts of the United States because now they're having troubles transferring that data from the EU to the United States. Industry has a vested interest in this as well.
That's pretty fascinating. Now seeing something that is invisible, the data in which we get, is transferred and where that's stored, invisible, intangible, if you will, and going up all the way to the geopolitical level of how countries are needing to handle this and the relationships between one another and how that can impact trade. What's two words, privacy law, but man, does that have a lot of legs, a lot of strings.